Great. Welcome to the June 22nd Educator Excellence Committee meeting. We are going to start with talking about how to communicate the study. And Andrew will is Andrew here with us, Jen? Great.
Yeah.
Uh, Pass things to Andrew to give us some ideas and then we can discuss and how we want to proceed. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, hey you guys. Please excuse the hat. I'm having a terrible hair day today and could not bear to see it on camera, so we're covering it up. Yeah, so about the report. So Jen shared the report with me earlier today. I was giving it a read through, and Jen and I actually got to sit down and chat just for a little bit earlier today and discuss like some potential next steps. Sorry, what was Okay. Oh yeah. Um, and we kind of came up with like I think like a pretty good way to proceed. So I just like want to throw some things out there, get your perspective, get your ideas. Um, but what like Jen and I really kind of and Jen, thank you so much for being able to talk through this with me because I really like bouncing ideas off of people. But one thing that like I really like a great opportunity that I saw in this is kind of doing a multi-pronged approach to it. So we have this like robust report. We've done these amazing focus groups with people, and I see like an initial phase of this as building awareness for the report, like actually building up to like a launch for the report and using that as like an opportunity for awareness. So, hold up a second. My throat's a little dry today, but yeah. So what I was kind of thinking is over the next few weeks, few months, kind of delaying the report until maybe late August or early September to kind of get our argument straight, to kind of build out like some social media stuff to prepare for like when we actually do release the report to kind of make it a cohesive project. Doing a blog. I'm really sorry, you guys. I am not with it today, but I'm trying to think of the ways that I was articulating this to Jen earlier because it was coming out just fine. But kind of doing it in phases. So phase one, over the next few months, summer, leading up to like actually launching the report, building out some social media stuff, getting a blog ready, focusing in on actually just making the public aware that like we've done this report, and on the side also engaging with stakeholder groups to see what recommendations it is that they find most actionable, kind of having conversations with policymakers to see what is flexible. And then in November and through March of next year, kind of like leaning into more of like an advocacy inflected tone, doing op-eds, making the social media a little bit more trenchant about like a policy action that like we want to come out of this report. So kind of like look at it like as an intensification spectrum. So like we start out with just announcing, hey, we have this report, here are the recommendations, kind of hammering those things, and then increasing the intensity of our messaging over the course of the months following the launch of the report, and kind of tailoring that to when we submit our budget letter to council in November, as they kind of come to sit down at the table for budget conversations next February, March, April. Um, I'm going to pause right there just to like open
Thanks,
it up to
Andrew.
discussion. I
How
think
about
I'm
this?
like,
Can you break down for us how we've done, like what are the actionable options? There's blog post, there's social, there's an op-ed, there's what else?
we
What
can
else
we
can we
can
do?
we can do a live webinar to launch the event. Like we can host a webinar on the day like we actually launch the event or
Okay.
launch the report. Um, Yeah, so we have social media, we have live events, live webinars, we have op-eds, we have blogs, um, we have letters to editors if you don't want to go the full opinion
Uh-huh.
op-ed route.
Okay.
Um, we have like a variety of tools. I think like what's really important, like to figure out how like we want to proceed, and this is kind of like I think I might have led off with this, is what do we want to get from this report?
Yeah.
You know, like I
Yeah.
mean, we have a lot of
So,
recommendations
so
in
my
there.
my my take on this has changed in the last, few weeks since we've chatted last. Uh, which is I think a lot of the opportunity now is actually to make sure that this is one of the priorities of the transitional team. Like if we actually want this to be actionable and lead to the results we want to see. Um, so informing whoever is working on education for Janice's team on the work that the board has done for educator retention, particularly from this last year, I think is a really if if I think about what would lead to the actions that we actually want to happen, that is the play. And it would be about communicating towards that as the her as the audience. Um, and I do think that we can expand that out to the new people that are joining council. But Robert, Ben, what do you agree? I think if waiting for March next year is too late to me.
I was not suggesting that we delay anything until March.
Mhm.
I can answer like a few more
Mhm.
questions
Mhm.
about that. Like ultimately, like I think what I was trying. I'm sorry, did I interject between Robert and Ben? Or
Go ahead.
so I think like what I was trying to suggest is kind of like doing like a little bit of a timing exercise. Like the launch of the report is its own communications project in and of itself. Just putting the report out into the world and making people aware of like what the report is, what its recommendations are. And then there's the more advocacy inflected project associated with this report of
I
like,
understand. Okay.
yeah, so
I
like
understand
I'm
that.
trying
Yep.
to like do those two things.
And at the least, Andrew, we'd love your help to do the educational piece sooner rather than later. I think that's necessarily step one. As we think about the advocacy piece, Robert and Ben, what's your take on who the best audience is and timing?
Yeah, I agree that there's an opportunity to uh, speak directly to the executive um, side, which I think when we would had talked about this previously, we had talked mostly about council, um, but certainly worth trying that and finding out, where they are already on this issue, and then how we can inform and advocate.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I I don't disagree with anything I've heard. I think the piece that strikes me as important that Andrew mentioned is just to get clear on our argument, messaging, and recommendations. I do think there's still some work here once we get the final report later this week. So, because everyone's gonna ask us, like nobody's gonna, I think, view the issue as controversial. I think there's going to be a willingness to be able to support early teachers. I think the question is how and in what ways
Yeah,
and what does it look like? Um, so I think to me it's a all of the above approach. Um, and then just figuring out the timing of things. So when I say all of the above, I'm saying yes, we should have a conversation with um as the new mayoral education transition team comes about to put this on their radar and to make sure they're informed of the work that we've done. I think that we still should continue with our stakeholder meetings. And then I think there's also just like an op-ed, kind of like similar to what you've done in the past. I think with maybe the line or maybe the informer too, Alistair, around just kind of framing this issue for the city. I'd be happy to kind of have the three of us
I love that.
write a piece to be able
Great.
to help shape the public conversation.
I love that.
Yeah, and I just think that like I know these conversations are happening in different ways. I think some one thing that makes it hard in figuring out strategy is, we're somewhat siloed, right? Like we have this work, we now have the report, we come back together, but we also have to do our due diligence to figure out how
Yeah.
other
So,
people in the education space are talking about it.
I get excited about that, Ben. So, um, I think Jen, Andrew, if we can add that to the list, I do think that that's something uh is would be fun and impactful to work on, if not just to frame where we are, right? What you're naming though is something that I think we talked last time that is still um I what is the most actionable thing and what is our ask, right? Is is still not super clear to me from the study itself, but it is relatively clear to me from our conversations as a committee. So, um, but I do think that you are uniquely positioned, Ben, to digest it into like what you think is the committee's take on uh
The
how to
report.
support
Hmm.
because of your actual experiences. Is that something you'd be willing to take on for our next meeting? Like before we communicate the ask, right? Like I do think that there's the Andrew communicating what's been done
Hmm.
and what the report says, right? Like that can start today.
Hmm.
But the before we move into any of the advocacy, I think, and even scheduling to talk with people, I do think you're right that we need to get on the same page about what is the one thing that we're all as this committee agrees on is the ask, right? And so um
Yeah, because I think these are gonna, yeah. I think this,
okay.
when I look at the report and then I look at the areas of like practice as a teacher, the report kind of overlaps a variety of areas of practice in DCPS. Like this is going to touch on, it touches tangentially on like, planning time, which DCPS has had or W2 has had a lot of grievances with DCPS not protecting and respecting teacher planning time. The sketch that like the impact with regards to how do we have like what schools actually have leap coaches to be able to coach teachers, and which don't. There's a variety of intersecting areas. So I think the short answer to your point is like yes, I can take a look at kind of what I think are the best recommendations because there's a whole host of issues here.
Thank you.
And then one of the stakeholder groups that I had committed to talking with was the WTU.
Mhm.
Um, so I can continue to do that because I think that we're going to need buy-in from them with whatever we propose to.
100%. And then that moves to the second point. Thank you, Andrew. So I think just to be clear there, Andrew, I think what we're proposing is please help us with the broad education piece. Um, and then we have some things to work out as we sort out what the advocacy timeline looks like. The timeline then for the second bullet point for us on the agenda of how we do our engagement is I think is then the way that I'm thinking about this is there's two purposes, right? One is um engagement in the sense of getting feedback on exactly this question, Ben, of we have now done all this research. What is the number one ask? Before we actually then go to them to make the ask, right? So it's done together. And so it's actually shifting how I think about this is less of a pitch to everybody that we meet and more of a, here's what we've done. How would you take, like feedback, right? And talking in the does that resonate with you guys in our next conversation with the list of groups that we said we would talk to?
So our primary question is, this is what we heard. What do you think are the actions to take to reflect these priorities? That sounds
Or am I just extending this unnecessarily long?
No,
I think it's a necessary step. Sorry.
I do too, but I also just think within each group there's going to be a different role. So I also think like there's a question around what do you see as your role to supporting this work? Um, what do you need to know to be able to like evaluate your capacity to support this work as well?
Okay, so it's
And
those
then,
two
and then
questions,
figuring
right?
out who, I think also like when we're talking about DCPS, obviously things will be changing, at the end of next school year, but I think that, we have what, 8 weeks until a couple hundred teachers are going to be coming into the district, and we're just going to be repeating the same cycle of um,
Correct.
inadequate onboarding. Um, so I'm also wondering if there's something we can do in the, with regards to supporting this new group of teachers this year that doesn't have to be legislated, but can just be something that is bolstered based on something that's already being done and not
I mean,
recreate.
Ben, we could try to write something before that, right? Like, just
Yeah,
like,
I'll
hey,
plan to
here's some.
touch base with Laura, and there's also a group that leads the professional development committee within the WTU, to see if what they're thinking. I'm going to a session with the WTU in July to look at like training and professional development. So then that might also be something that we could build from for our August.
Okay. Uh, yeah, would love your take on what we can do by in the next 8 weeks, as well. But for scheduling purposes, am I correct to remember that what we decided was we'll reach out to the groups that we said we would reach out to and find a time that works for whoever reached out, and then just let everybody else know and hope that they can join instead of trying to find a time that works for everybody. Okay.
Yeah, and I think too, Rep, Rep Chang, are you by chance? So Aussie also has, I think, on Thursday their rollout of their 5-year strategic plan. And I'd had a variety of conversations with Andrew Gallon and Superintendent Mitchell just around like the priority of strengthening instruction. So I'm curious to like if I'm gonna try to make it. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it, but I know that one of your stakeholder meetings was with Aussie just to kind of see to what degree um,
Hmm.
supporting teachers is a part of the focus in the next 5 years.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Um, so just to be clear though, the next steps for everybody are we're scheduling our next meetings. Jen, if you could send a follow-up note for us to remember the two questions that we framed for that meeting, that would be great. And then uh we'll share back next month, hopefully. By then we've got
Wondering,
some information
is that when we want to kind of share out? Is there a form or like a way to kind of gather this information that
beforehand.
And
yeah.
also for scheduling, usually the committees don't meet in July. You all could meet. I mean, you all can do what you want and set one up. Or you could meet in early August. But
Why
yes,
don't we
we can
take
also follow up.
I like what you're saying, Ben. Why don't we take the next 2 months to either have a mix of conversation or I think what I'm hearing you say, Ben, is survey.
Potentially. It was just so it was um because I don't necessarily want to ask. I mean, yeah, either they fill out a survey or we record our notes, right? Like it's
Hmm?
gonna be one or the other. So I'm open to what people's thoughts are. I don't necessarily have it something that jumps out at me.
I mean, look, this is all for our purposes to kind of help us make sense of the work that's been done, right?
Yeah.
So as long as it's tracked um, consistently, I'm good with it. So Jen, could we get the team's help to make a little bit of a survey that either could serve as a for us to take our own notes, but go to a somewhere we could see everybody else's answers too. And then Ben, if we decide to send it to anybody to fill out on their own, we can do that too. Right. But it's like super informal.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, and something definitely on the shorter side, but I think it would be helpful just to have a place to gather
I
information.
like that. And Jen, I think it would be helpful to cite all the work that has been done as well. Right. The three Mary Levy studies, this last one, um, and the broad framing of what we're looking to explore. Thank you. Any new business?
I don't have any. I guess, are we going to determine like when it is best to meet after new business before we adjourn? Because I
Let's
don't,
do
I think it's important that we continue the work in July, but I don't necessarily see a need to meet in July. I think as long as people kind of have the stakeholder meetings that they need to, especially when the council recesses, like we can keep each other abreast via email. But I do think that if we met in early August, or at least touch base on this, like with a share out at the working session,
Oh,
um, it would still be before new teacher induction starts for
yeah,
DCPS charter schools.
that makes sense to me. So, I my schedule looks relatively open on the afternoon of the 3rd and the 4th of August. Does that work for you guys?
The that doesn't work for me. I'm free the second half of the week, so I could do like the 6th.
That works for me too. Robert,
Yeah, that's fine for me.
what time, Ben?
Pretty free. So what 4 is fine if that works for others too.
Can we do this time then? Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Um, any other comments before I close this out?
I guess just a wonder because I want us to enjoy our break, but then I also and I don't know if there's any ideas and now because we can come back to this in August, but what do we see? I mean, there's still work to implement the report and figure out how we um get buy-in for the recommendations. But do we see this as the issue that we continue? Obviously, we finish with this issue through like the end of 2026.
Hmm?
But is there anything else that we're interested in looking at the second half of the year, or are we just kind of reevaluating that at the
Yeah,
end of
I'm
2026?
I mean super open to it. I do think so much of this will change, right? Um, as things move around. Um, and so I think maybe that's homework for us to take on the next 2 months too. If we can put that in the notes, Jen, is like think about what else the committee works on next year, because I don't have an immediate answer for you right now, Ben. Right. But um, I mean, if you're if if you are willing to async, get started first on doing first draft of here's where you think the most actionable recommendations lead us to push for the advocacy piece. It'll help. It would help me at least. I imagine it would help Robert to have some ideas to kind of pressure test with the people that we're talking to over the next 2 months to be like, hey, Rep Williams thinks this is the path. What do you think about that? Right. Um, and so and if any of those are things that you think we're able to push for this fall, let's throw that into the op-ed, right? But I think I'm not sure I see which ones are actionable for today.
Makes sense.
Okay. Um, Andrew, could you help us kind of like give us some ideas for an op-ed draft that the three of us could write as well? Just like a few outlines or like one idea, even just to kick us off.
Do you mean like right now, or just sync up with you later?
Over the next 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can think of
Yeah.
something for you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Can
And then I'm
can I
happy to
can I
take it
ask
first.
like can I ask like one question about this? Have you ever like considered maybe just honing, like trying to use the meetings with your stakeholder groups to find like the one issue that you could put pressure on this fall? Does it have to be something like that you're trying to hit every single recommendation area, or is it something that you can drag out over several years to try and get success in many years? Um, I mean, just trying to think about like, if you shoot for five things and get none of like, and they shoot it down on the basis that they're not going to give you all five things. But if you found one thing that you could really hammer home very strongly with a higher success chance of getting the
Uh-huh.
one thing.
Yep, for sure. And I think that that's where we
Because I think
decided
that
to
would
focus
also
on
help
one
with like an
issue,
op-ed.
and then I think that's good, good for Ben to consider as he's thinking about how we distill this all down to one top ask. Right, Ben?
Yeah.
But um uh I um I appreciate that, Andrew. Anything else?
I don't know if
Yeah,
there's a planned meeting with Kim Jackson, but if leadership is doing a meeting with her, um, I would want us to use that opportunity to, to speak into the new teachers are coming. Um,
Yep.
we just ask you to be thoughtful about how
Yep.
you're supporting them because we know that's a weakness in our
I like
system.
that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Jen, can we make a note for leadership?
Yes, I am not currently aware of a meeting, but I'm sure they're thinking about it, and I will add it to the leadership meeting
Thank
agenda
you.
for tomorrow.
That's great.
and-
Robert, I like that.
yeah, and Jen, I would be, I appreciate that. I would ask, I'd be fine. Can we ask them to ask for a meeting? I mean, Robert, Alistair, do you
Uh-huh.
see?
I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think just as a report out, like it's something that we think we should do as a board, and to update them on our priorities, but also see how we can work together on those priorities.
Great. All right, y'all. Thank you. And I will see you all soon, even if not in this iteration of a meeting. Uh, and thank you, Jen. Thank you, Andrew, for your help to move things forward.
Thank you guys.
Of course, thank you. Bye.
Bye.